Coming up in this video. Hey everyone, welcome back to HD Camping Adventures. This week we're taking you on an epic 10-day road trip from Vancouver to the stunning Haida Gwaii. Whether you're dreaming of exploring this incredible region or planning your own trip, we've got plenty of tips and sights to share. So stick around, there's something here for everyone. From Vancouver, we're setting out on an 18-hour drive to Prince Rupert, where we'll catch the ferry to Haida Gwaii. Along the way, we'll pass through a number of charming small towns, giving us a glimpse of British Columbia's rugged beauty. This journey will take us further north than we've ever been, and we can't wait to share the adventure with you. British Columbia's railroads have played a pivotal role in the province's history and development. The completion of the Canadian Pacific Railway in the late 19th century connected BC to the rest of Canada. We did hit a few minor construction delays along the way, as road crews were working hard to finish up projects before winter set in. It's all part of travelling through northern BC, where the short summer season means construction is in full swing to keep the roads in good shape for the harsher months ahead. After a full day on the road, we finally arrived in Williams Lake. We grabbed a well-deserved dinner and some drinks to relax after the drive, then headed to bed early to recharge for the next leg of our trip. Tomorrow's going to be another big day as we continue our journey north. Good morning. We're up before the sun, ready to hit the road and continue our journey to Prince Rupert. Today's drive will be about 10 hours, and we're expecting plenty more stunning scenery along the way. And of course, there'll be no shortage of coffee stops to keep us going. There are endless places you could stop along the way, with so much to see and explore, but with time constraints it's tough to fit everything in. We had to be selective with our stops, but every moment on the road is filled with something worth seeing. Of course, no road trip would be complete without getting a massive rock chip in the windshield. It's a Jeep thing. A little battle scar to remember the journey by. We tend to avoid traveling during peak season, preferring to take our chances with bad weather rather than dealing with big crowds. On this trip, we definitely encountered plenty of rain, but if you're from BC, you're probably used to this. After a long second day of driving, we finally arrived in Prince Rupert, where we'll spend the night before our 10 a.m. ferry departure. After sitting all day, we were eager to stretch our legs and explore the town. It's pretty foggy today, so visibility isn't great, but even through the mist, the town has a certain charm. Today's the day we catch the ferry from Prince Rupert to Skidegate on Haida Gwaii. With the ferry departing at 10 a.m. daily, we had some time in the morning to grab breakfast and stock up on supplies before lining up to board. The excitement is building as we get closer to our destination. This ferry is a bit unique as it only has one vehicle entrance, meaning all vehicles have to board in reverse. Because of this, the loading process took quite a while, around 2 hours in total. Once we were finally parked on board, we rushed up to the top deck to watch the last of the vehicles load onto the ferry. It was a cool sight, seeing the whole process from above as we got ready to set sail. We ended up leaving a bit later than scheduled, but once we were on our way, we settled in for the roughly 7-hour ferry ride to Haida Gwaii. Today we're sailing on the Northern Adventure, a ferry that makes this trip daily. If you've travelled with BC ferries before, this ship might look familiar to you. But for those who haven't, we're going to give you a quick tour so you know what to expect on board. As usual, there are plenty of outdoor seating areas across multiple decks, although these spots are probably more enjoyable during the summer months. If you'd rather not brave the weather, there are also plenty of comfortable indoor seating areas to relax in. There's also a small convenience and clothing store called Passages, and of course the cafeteria. After spending some time enjoying the ocean views, we decided to head inside and grab some lunch. The 7-hour trip flew by, and before we knew it, we caught our first glimpse of Haida Gwaii, the ferry docks in the small town of Skidegate, marking the beginning of our adventure on this incredible island. We'll start by saying that Haida Gwaii isn't the ideal holiday destination for everyone. Most of the towns here are small, with just a convenience store and maybe one or two restaurants that aren't open every day. But if you're coming here for hiking, off-roading, camping and outdoor adventures, this is the place for you. Visiting Haida Gwaii can also be a bit pricey, so it's important to plan accordingly. Just the ferry ride alone set us back around $700. On top of that, we spent over $1,000 on fuel for the entire trip. Accommodations range between $150 and $200 per night. Since it was already 5 p.m. by the time we arrived, we decided to head straight to our first accommodation on the island. We were looking for unique places to stay, and our first stop is an Airstream trailer that we booked on Airbnb. We end the evening at the one restaurant we find that happens to be open on a Sunday. We're up early this morning, ready for another adventure. Today we plan to catch another ferry over to Moresby Island, but first things first, we need coffee. On the way, we stumbled upon the one really good coffee shop on the island, which quickly became our go-to spot for morning coffee. Just a heads up though, they're not open on weekends, so plan accordingly. Moresby Island makes up the lower half of Haida Gwaii and is just a short ferry ride from the mainland. Definitely worth the visit. While you can fly to Haida Gwaii, having a vehicle is an absolute must to fully explore the islands. Luckily, there are rental car agencies available if you need one. Our first stop on Moresby Island was one of its many beautiful beaches. If you're a beach lover, Haida Gwaii is the place for you. With so many stunning beaches to explore, you'll likely have each one almost entirely to yourself. Next, we checked out the main town on Moresby Island, Sandspit. Here you'll find the island's airport along with a few small stores. We picked up some lunch and supplies at the local grocery store before heading out to Grey Bay, another popular spot on the island. While having a vehicle is essential when visiting Haida Gwaii, it's even better to have a truck or SUV. Many of the must-see spots, including Grey Bay, require traveling on Forest Service roads. There seems to be an endless number of off-road trails leading to various beaches and bays throughout the island. We still can't get over the fact that there isn't a single person at any of these beaches. It's incredible to have such beautiful untouched spots all to ourselves. After making several stops along the way, we eventually arrived at Grey Bay, another stunning beach on the island. The journey was well worth it. Grey Bay is a must-see for anyone visiting Moresby Island. On our journey back, we stumbled upon a small trail and decided to stop to stretch our legs. The trail led to yet another beautiful, secluded beach. Not far from the first, we found a second trail, which sounds like a great spot for whale watching during the summer months. While we didn't spot any whales this time, the view alone was still well worth the stop. While stopping at the local harbour, we noticed countless fish jumping in the ocean. It's currently salmon spawning season, and there are so many of them around. We stood there in silence for about 45 minutes just watching them leap out of the water. On our way back from Moresby Island, we made a quick stop at the iconic Balance Rock. After taking in the sights, we headed back to our accommodation to regroup and plan out the adventures for tomorrow. On day 5, we set off from Skidegate and headed north to the town of Masset, located on the upper portion of the island. The drive takes about an hour and 15 minutes, but trust me, you'll want to take your time. Along the way, there are plenty of scenic stops worth exploring. About halfway through our drive, we made a stop in the small town of Port Clements. This charming spot quickly became one of our favorites, especially for its pub right on the water. It's the perfect place to grab lunch or dinner with a view. There is also a popular logging museum. We arrived in Masset a bit earlier than expected, so with some time to spare before checking into our next Airbnb, we decided to head over to North Beach. North Beach is surrounded by countless trails to explore, but what really sets it apart is that it's one of only 2 beaches on the island where off-road vehicles are allowed. Naturally, we couldn't pass up the chance to take the Jeep out for a spin right on the sand. For Dave, this was without a doubt the highlight of the trip. If you're thinking about giving this a try, make sure you've got a capable off-road vehicle. It's surprisingly easy to get stuck in the soft sand. And don't forget to keep your eye on the tides. They can change quickly and catch you off guard. It's time to head to our next accommodation, a rustic cabin just steps away from the beach. With no electricity, this place offered a truly off-grid experience. It was such a fun and adventurous way to unplug and spend a couple of days surrounded by nature. After quickly dropping off our bags, we headed out for a short hike up Toe Hill, just a stone's throw from our cabin. There are 2 distinct trails here, each offering completely different views of the surrounding landscape. For the full experience, we combined them into a scenic loop, which was definitely worth it. After getting back to our cabin, we get to enjoy the beach for a bit before a big storm rolls in and we're forced to head back inside. The cabin was equipped with a wood stove, which created a warm and inviting atmosphere at night. It kept the cabin very toasty. On day 6, we set out to hike the Pesuta shipwreck trail, a must-do for anyone visiting Haida Gwaii. If you've looked into this incredible destination, chances are you've come across pictures of the iconic shipwreck, and trust me, it's even more impressive in person. Seeing the remains of the shipwreck up close really makes you think about how daring those early sailors were, venturing into the vast, unpredictable ocean in boats built from just wooden planks and nails. After wrapping up the hike, we made our way back to our favourite pub for a well-deserved dinner. With full stomachs and great memories, we returned to the cabin just in time to catch the sun setting over the beach, a perfect way to end the day. On day 7, we packed up and made our way back towards Skidegate for our final night. A big storm was rolling in and all ferries on and off the island had already been cancelled on this day. This is something to keep in mind if you're visiting during the off-season. Bad weather can lead to ferry and flight cancellations, so it's important to plan accordingly. With heavy rain on and off throughout the day, we decided to take it easy. We did manage to visit the Haida Gwaii Museum, which was absolutely worth it, though filming and photography aren't allowed inside. If you're ever in the area, it's definitely a must-see for learning more about the rich culture and history of the Haida people. Day 8 marks our final day on the island, and while it feels bittersweet, we're not quite done exploring. The ferry back to the mainland departs at an unusual hour, 10 p.m. With accommodation check-out typically around 10 or 11 a.m., we're left with a big chunk of time to fill before our departure. Instead of waiting around, we decide to make the most of these last few hours. For the first time on this trip, we set our sights on the island's west coast. The storm's aftermath is clear as we drive, with fallen trees blocking parts of the road. Just 10 minutes from Rennell Sound, we hit a major obstacle. A tree stretched across the road. But Dave, determined as ever, isn't about to let that stop us from reaching the west coast. We finally set our eyes on the west coast, and it's every bit as breathtaking as the rest of Haida Gwaii. As we explore, we come across some stunning campsites, perfect spots we're already marking down for our next trip. On the way back, we decide to take a different route, which leads us to one of our favourite spots, the pub in Port Clements, for a well-deserved lunch. With time still on our side, we relax and reminisce about the trip before making our way to the ferry lineup for the journey back to the mainland. For the return trip, we've booked a cabin so we can get some sleep before the long drive tomorrow. We opted for the cheapest room available, which is a 4-bed inside cabin. Each room comes with its own private bathroom and shower, which is nice. It's a little bit loud and rocky, but we do manage to get a few hours of sleep in. We've made it back to the mainland, but our journey isn't quite over yet. We have 2 more days of driving ahead. As we wrap up this video, we can confidently say that this has been the trip of a lifetime. For anyone passionate about the outdoors, this adventure is an absolute must, and for us, we'll definitely be back. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other overlanding and hot tenting adventures. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming trips.